Hey guys, how's it going? Firebucks here. I want to share with you a review of the Midnight Walkers. I have put about 40 hours into this game between this playtest and last playtest. The first things first, what is Midnight Walkers? It is an extraction PvPvE game where you'll explore the Grand Liberty Center, featuring 15 different floors that you can loot and kill other zombies and players. This follows a very similar formula to other extraction games in the genre, such as Dark and Darker and Escape from Tarkov. There is a PvE mode also being created for those of you that want to experience the game without fighting other players. It is currently out for alpha testing on Steam for this week, and is planned to return around June for further testing, and hopefully afterwards for an early access release. As this game currently is in alpha testing, there are definitely going to be many things that will likely change in the future and hopefully be improved upon, so this video is going to be here to help you decide whether it is currently worth you spending your time on this game or not. Now I'm going to have this video in two different sections. The first is going to be a general overview of the game hub, the different characters, things like that. The second section is going to be the gameplay and my personal pros and cons of the game in the current state. Now, when you first load up the game, you are going to have two different options: solo and team mode. There are currently two different maps ranging from the basement floor to floor 7 to floor 8 to 15. So there are currently 15 or 16 different floors that you can traverse in the Liberty Grand Center. There are four different classes you can choose from: the Assaulter, who is your melee focused class who does not have access to ranged weapons; the Crow, who is your roguelike class specializing in sharp weapons; and the Shotgun and Revolver; the Trapper, who is your range-focused class, who has access to things like the compound bow and the rifle, very, very deadly in range, but also has access to weapons such as the spear, which makes him competent in melee. And Bartender is going to be your healer slash buff class, primarily seen in trios. I have not seen this class a lot for solo play, but if you're someone who enjoys support type roles, this is probably going to be the class for you. Every class is going to have access to two different skills and four different perks that is going to help you in fighting zombies and other players. I'm not going to go too in depth here. I'll let you experience that for yourself. I just wanted to briefly show it. And there is going to be a unique skill and training, but these are currently not available in the alpha. There is a stash tab, pretty standard stuff for games like this, where you can store different stuff that you collect while you play. This includes gear, meds, crafting supplies, everything like that. And of course, you have your gear. You have helmet, chest piece, legs, gloves, different weapons. You have your waist, your jewelry, your shoes, and you have a few equipable slots for your consumables. This includes meds, throwing knives, molotovs, and for other classes, they have different options as well. You also have a safe pouch and a normal pouch for looting. If you die with anything in your safe pouch, you do not lose it if you die, but if you die with anything in your regular pouch, it will be lost, including all of your gear that you have as well. There are vendors in this game that sell an assortment of weapons, clothing, jewelry, and different crafting items. There are going to be missions in this game, so you can level up your merchant's affinity, to my understanding, but in this early alpha, it does not have it, so just keep that in mind. The workbench is where you're going to go to craft different items. This includes weapons, armor, medicine, ammo, and a bunch of other things. So for example, if I want to craft a kukri, I could come here, select my drop down to legendary, and then if I collect different resources, I can craft this legendary without ever having to find the weapon originally, which I think is a pretty cool system. The rank tab is just a leaderboard if you care about that kind of thing and you want to compete with other players for score. And the trading tab is where you're going to trade with other players for everything that you need. This includes weapons, armor, meds, crafting supplies, literally everything that I'm aware of, you can trade here. Now, I will say I think the trading hub needs a little bit of work. It's a little bit confusing. There's a lot of different tabs over here on the left-hand side, and there's a lot of different stuff in these tabs. So hopefully they can kind of tidy this up for the early access release. But right now, they do have this player trading, so just keep that in mind. This is not a self-found game like some other extraction games might have. Now I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about the game itself. I want to go over the pros and the cons that I have seen so far. I'm sure this list could be even longer, but I've kind of narrowed it down to some of the important things that I think you really should know. So, first pro, the exploration of this game is very enjoyable. Traveling up and down different types of floors with the danger of both zombies and players while scavenging for loot is something that no other extraction game has really created yet. Rather than having one larger area, there's 8 different floors to explore on 2 different maps, which each has its own specific purpose, such as the construction site for materials, a hospital for medical supplies, and boss floors, just as some examples. I think the pacing of this game feels nice. I don't feel rushed while looting and feel like there's just not enough time, but there's also not too much time where the game gets boring and it feels like I'm just kind of mindlessly waiting for an extract. It feels like a really good amount of time given right now, which I really like. My second pro is that combat is simple but fun, even though it needs improvement. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the con section of this video. You can use melee weapons or a few ranged options ranging from a bow, a rifle, a revolver, or a shotgun. There is something very enjoyable about running around with melee weapons fighting zombies and other players while knowing that the ranged options in this game don't just completely replace melee. I think it's the lack of automatic weapons and the one-shot kill weapons that make combat feel more enjoyable, and like you always have a chance to fight. You never just die unexpectedly from some random one-shot from a bush like you would in other FPS games, like Escape from Tarkov. My third pro is that gear progression feels good while also not feeling too difficult to get. After learning the game, I decided to create a brand new character and was able to relatively easily gear up in a few hours' time from starter weapons to greens, blues, and purples, which is every tier outside of the highest in this game being legendary. Every single upgrade and all the levels that I got on my class felt like a noticeable difference for both zombie kill time and player encounters, which allows you to go through the map safer and more efficiently. So if you are a fan of these full loot games, then I can tell you that gear definitely feels impactful in this one. My fourth pro is that most classes feel balanced even this early on. Few imbalances here and there, but it feels okay, especially for being a early alpha. So far, there are 4 different class types like I showed earlier: Assaulter, Crow, Trapper, and Bartender. The Assaulter being the melee expert, with no real ranged options, but it feels very powerful once you get up close. The Crow is the mobile class, like the Rogue, that specializes in sharp weapons and some ranged options like shotgun and revolver. Their access to toxic smoke bombs, poison, and mobility just kind of makes them feel good to play from my own experience. The Trapper is the primarily range-focused class, using the bow and other ranged weapons, including the rifle. Their skills and perks make them feel strong at range while not feeling overly oppressive to melee. And the Bartender is the healer buff class that seems to be primarily played in teams. As a solo player, I don't have a lot of info to give, but just between all 4 of these, at least right now, I feel like it's in a decent spot, at least for just general gameplay. My fifth and final pro is that it's obvious the dev team is working hard on this game. I remember a few months ago to now, I think the game is in a pretty decently better spot. The workbench feature is pretty nice. The gameplay feels a little bit more in-depth. We have 2 different maps instead of 1. It's obvious that we still need more stuff in the game, which is where the con section is going to come in. But for now, I'm pretty content with what they've done in just a few months since the last playtest, and I am looking forward to what the dev team does for the June early access and the next playtest as well. Now, I want to go ahead and get into the cons of this game. The first one is going to be about the combat. I know that I said that the combat being basic can be seen as a plus side, but I think right now it's a little bit too basic. They have the baseline there, but we still need more meat in order to allow for more outplay potential. So to give you an idea, most melee weapons only have one singular attack with a predetermined pattern. There's really no blocking in this game, and there's no other high skill options that are really working currently. There is a parry, but it really doesn't work. It's actually pretty bad. So you do have alternate weapon choices, such as, the bow, rifle, shotgun, revolver, which is great, and some might find this type of simple combat enjoyable, others might not. But ultimately, while I had fun playing the game in the current state, I think there's no doubt that additional work is going to be needed to make the combat feel a little bit more fun, but it's a good start, and hopefully they'll continue to work on that. My second con is going to be a pretty big one, but it's very easy to fix, but it needs to be fixed by the early access release, and that is the stash organization needs improvement. Currently, there's a lot of different items in this game that have different uses, ranging from crafting materials, meds, ammo, grindable items that are made for the in-game grinder to refine materials, and there's just so much more. There's probably hundreds. It feels like there's hundreds of items. And the problem is currently items do not stack in stash after a raid, meaning that every time you leave a raid, you're going to end up having a bunch of different piles of the same exact item, and the stashes are very small, so it just feels very clustered and unfun to deal with. This is one of those things where if the game released with this in the current state, I think it would end up annoying enough people to turn some people away from it completely, because it makes the stash just a really unfun minigame. So just putting it out there, it's easy to fix, but it definitely needs address, and it's not just me. A lot of other people have expressed concern about the current stash organization. My third con on the list is going to be the very limited bossing currently in the game. So right now, there's only 2 bosses that I found while playing that you're watching me fight in the background. They're located next to each other on floor 4 and 15. These I would really more accurately describe as mini bosses, not bosses, as their movesets are pretty limited, and they really only give a moderate challenge to fight once you learn how to fight them. The biggest risk fighting them, honestly, might just be getting PvP'd, having a player come up and try to attack you while you're trying to fight them. Once you get it down, I doubt the bosses really have much risk of killing you. So as a result, there's no real end game at the moment. You can see most of this game in a relatively short amount of time. So if the game were to release right now in early access, I don't know if there's enough content to keep people interested for a long period, and this could be a concern. We'll have to wait and see if they manage to add any more decent content to keep people playing for the long term. Which leads me into my fourth con, and that's the limited zombies too. Right now, there's only a few types of zombies: the spitters, the normal, the SWAT, the crawlers, the runners, and the mini bosses that I've seen personally. And the movesets for all of these feel pretty limited, usually like 1 or 2 attacks at most for the most part. And I think more zombie types are going to be needed in order to add enough depth to the game to not feel like you're just one repeat loop playing the same exact thing over and over again. You need a lot of different types of zombies to make the game feel fresh and interesting. And I know it's an early alpha, so I'm sure this will get added on, but I wanted to add it because right now, like if the game were to release as an early access game, I imagine people might get bored relatively quickly with that being in the game currently. My fifth con is that trading needs some work. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there are just so many tabs with so many different items. It feels very unintuitive to use. I might not mind it as much if there was a search bar to find the exact item, but there's not. So between the list not being alphabetized and having to sit there and look through all these different sections to find one item, it just really doesn't feel great. Really cumbersome, I would say. My hope is that they continue to work on this trading system. If they want player trading to be a big part of this game, it's going to be pretty important to not feel like a chore. And if you do give the game a try, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about when you start using the trading system. And that's going to be everything I wanted to talk about for the Midnight Walkers. I know you might be thinking, okay, well, what do I review the game as if I had to give it a rating? Probably a 6 out of 10 is fair. Any lower than that, I don't think is fair because it is an early alpha playtest. But any higher than that, I think would also probably be too much because even though it is an early alpha, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed and fixed on and built upon to make this game feel really any better. Is it worth playing for the early alpha? I would say yeah. As a free test, it's fine. Give it a go if you think the game is interesting. Is it worth paid yet? Probably not. Give it a few more months. See where the game is. If you want to see more gameplay of Midnight Walkers, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, like the video and subscribe. Helps the channel. Thank you for all the support you've been giving me recently, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.